Should have bought a pumpkin to sell. Right, okay. Just got to get my head together. I've just come running over from a project I'm running over in North Tyneside out somewhere else. We've got all our first year project managers and architecture students at the moment designing renewable energy systems out of junk. So they've spent all morning building wind turbines out of barrels and old bits of bottles and trying to indicate solar panels made out of CDs and things. It's been quite crazy. So maybe get you guys to do that one day. See if you can build something that works out of old computer parts. It's been quite cool. But yeah, the bus was late, so I'm running. Right, okay. So today what I want to talk about, this is what we've been working towards to a degree, talking about the background for environmental issues in project management. Trying to talk to you about what the issues are that we are facing, both as people, as communities, but also as businessmen and women, okay, project managers. What some of the benefits perhaps of taking a sustainability approach as a project manager are. Some of the drivers, so that you've got to talk about in your essays. So what's driving us to become more sustainably minded as project managers? This legislation or the video I showed you this week with industry, our profession pushing sustainability in project management. But for the next 4 or 5 lectures, whatever it is, we're going to turn to some tools potentially and try to have a look more specifically at how we may try to lever in some of these things we've talked about into projects and project management. Okay, excuse me as well because I've got a cold. So we're going to touch on a few things today. These slides, this prezi is quite heavy in text, and there's a good reason for that because there's a lot in there. So I expect you probably to use this on Blackboard as well to read it in depth. I'm not going to read everything out that's on there. So we're going to look at the link between sustainability and strategic planning. Okay, strategic planning to a degree being what the organisation does or what the client's organisation does. So what the business does. And the link between that and planning and where project management slots into a strategic focus, strategic project management. We're going to touch on a few decision-making tools which are common out there. I expect you to look at those in more depth for your essay potentially. We're going to look at using business plans to develop sustainability aspects. We're going to talk about the project charter, which most projects will have now, kind of a terms of reference, I guess, which indicates how the project will be run. And we're going to talk a little bit about this thing called the Project Initiation Document, the PID. Some project management methodologies use this, Prince2 for instance, some of the agile methodologies use these documents. So how can we pop sustainability in to this very early stage of project planning? Okay. Governance for sustainability. It's very important to try to think about and recognise the link between project management and organisational theory, okay? Projects don't happen in a vacuum, they're a product of an organisation. Even if you're working for a single client, that client will have their own business, their own mind, their own idea of what they want to contribute to. So we have to try to make sure that our projects are in line with the governance and values of the organisation. So achieving environmental sustainability is this continuous process of evaluating our expectations, revising our goals and our targets. Sustainability is a journey, it's not a destination, okay? It's a complete kind of cycle of revising and reviewing and improving performance and reporting and monitoring. So we need to have a decent structure that allows us to overlay these sustainability indicators into our organisation. So having any sustainability strategy is part of our improvement process. It's flexible and needs to be updated to be able to change organisational structure. And there should be clear lines of accountability for where sustainability sits in an organisation. So this example here comes from a aluminium company, aluminum if you speak American, company. Very, very heavy industry, okay, aluminium, lots of use of heat, lots of use of resources. But they've got a very well developed governance system. So they talk about the principles of their company, which is their values, their integrity, their environmental and health policies, their customer focus, their people focus, profitability and accountability. And they try to embed environmental excellence, economic performance and social responsibility into their company values, and then devise this governance system which sits over the top. Okay? So sustainability is deeply embedded in their whole kind of corporate DNA, is the one way we talk about it. It's embedded throughout their DNA. And it's important to recognise that a lot of organisations now have this kind of governance structure. And where do you fit into that is something you need to consider. So strategic planning. Where do we put sustainability into strategic planning? Well, strategy is a strategic factor for organisations involved in project management. And the alignment of their structure with strategy is core. It's really, really important that your structure reflects what you want to achieve as an organisation. Sustainability with drivers we discussed in the previous weeks will all act on the corporate strategy in very different stages. Okay. So they drive you the vision. So what's the strategic vision of the organisation? Well, our vision is to create a company that provides the best quality carpet that we can to our customers. Good? It's not, but it's more interesting. It's up to you. Sorry to all the mechanical engineers out there, by the way. I know there's a few. Okay. So where do we pop sustainability into our mission? What is our mission? To become the #1 company in selling carpets. Thinking about interface. How can we do that? Well, our client seems to want more. Our clients want more sustainable products. Let's build that into our mission. Where do we work at the strategy level, which we're talking about now? So we've got an idea, we want to become a sustainable company, we're driven by our customer focus. How do we then translate that into action? By setting goals, of course, by having plans and roadmaps, and then delivering your projects, operation-specific strategy. At the moment, where we're working now, and you probably might get a feel of this through the literature, there is this massive disconnect here. That's one of the big problems we're facing as project managers. The organisation has one set of goals and aspirations, but they don't always translate down to project management level, because these are seen as being separate. Okay? Run by project managers, discrete, unique, temporary endeavours, remember, we talked about? This link here is a big problem for us at the moment, but there are ways of dealing with that. So there is evidence that the integration of sustainability into the business environment, the majority of this emphasis has fallen up here at the operational level, where companies implement environmental management systems and report on sustainability. Companies have also tended to place increasing importance on corporate social responsibility and philanthropic. Philanthropics, I can't even say that. You can say that. Philanthropic. It's just a good thing to do. Giving money away. Charity. So at the moment we're building more sustainability into our corporate strategies. What we're interested in, how we develop that down to our project level. So in order to make the case for incorporating sustainability into projects, the project manager, you have to understand where you sit in relation to all of this. Project managers gain power by aligning with your organisation's strategy, and you often overlook this. So if you're designing your project, you're running your discrete project you've been brought in to do for the organisation, you have to have a sense of where it sits with the organisation's mission and vision and goals. Because at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is produce something that is coming from their strategy. Again, this doesn't often happen, but you are not working in a vacuum. You're working to meet the vision, the engagement, the goals of the organisation. So the research that's coming out at the moment suggests that project managers are very good at putting their blinders on. Okay? They're just seeing where it comes to the end of the project, and they don't connect with the operation of the company. We're programmed to consider a project as having a definitive beginning and end, and then we just hand it over. So as I said quite early on, we looked at some evidence from McKinsey and Company and from MIT in the US, and there's a lot of stuff in the Harvard Business Review, which is talking about corporate sustainability becoming more and more understood. Nearly every company now will have a corporate sustainability objective, and they'll be talking it until they're sick of it. Corporate social responsibility, engagement, environmental issues. The trouble is, it's not translating to the ground, and that's where projects come in. Okay? The transition from the vision and the goal of what you want to do as an organisation down into actual action. Have you done organisational structures yet? Some of you will have. There are different organisational structures out there that organisations use to divide up their time. divide up their staff and their allocation. This has a big impact on project management, okay? And it's something worth thinking about. There are different ways that you can organise your structure in order to have better project management. So this one here, functional organisational structure. You'll have your chief executive at the top, who will decide on the strategy, come up with the goals and the mission of the organisation, and then be these discrete different departments. You have your operations department, your finance, your personnel department, your marketing. Quite a common organisational structure, and each of these will have their projects run discreetly and separate from each other. Okay? There's a problem there already. If sustainability is about bringing things together and about the whole picture, and it's the whole cycle, everything's interrelated, if you're running your projects in these separate silos, then that's when you start to have some issues. So your project to redeploy your personnel, to, maybe like the university's done, to rationalise your staff. If you're doing that project in a vacuum, you're not thinking about the impact that has from a financial or operational or marketing point of view. So that's quite a typical flat structure, functional organisation structure. Some projects will have these projector-sized organisational structures. This is for a particular organisation which delivers things through projects more often. Okay? So you've got your chief executive at the top there, your whole kind of strategy, your reason for being. You'll have some central support, all of his admin stuff, and then you'll have separate projects. Okay, next down. And each separate project will have its own financial department, own marketing, own production, own HR, and own engineering department. So this could be like a big multinational company, okay, that has offices all over the world doing these separate things. So it's quite good for executing projects. It's what the most typical one you'll find. It's tailored to meet complex projects by isolating unique work and maintaining strong focuses specifically on that project. So it's very effective in maintaining resources to a project, okay, for a lifespan. So imagine if you're an oil company, you'll probably have separate operations in each country or each region you're in, run like projects. However, the problem with this is it's not very good at transferring between projects, okay? They don't talk to each other, again. So any innovation that's happening here doesn't get translated to there, which doesn't get translated to there, which again is a problem, because you're all working for this top goal at the top here, but you're all working in different silos again. So that's one of the big problems we have with this kind of organisation structure. So from a sustainability point of view, there may be some work you could do to share resource use, to share efficiencies, okay, but you're not doing it because you're closed off in your own little project. And then we've got this matrix organisational structure, which is trying to do both things together, I guess. Trying to blend that functional one, the first design, with the second one, the project size design. So the main advantage of this is that the combination of the matrix balances both technical and project goals and allocates its responsibilities to both. So again, you've got your chief executive, then you've got your managers, which manage your operations, and then you've got your project manager. And your project manager will draw people in from each kind of part of the organisation. So in a way, you can see from a sustainability point of view, you are trying to bring in people from every department. You're getting a bit more of an overview of what's happening. So any kind of innovations, any resource sharing, any efficiencies can be passed through into each kind of section of the organisation. So it's often said that this is a much better way to maybe lever sustainable development into projects. However, they still have problems. Who's responsible for this member of staff? Is it the project manager, or is it the manager, the chief executive, the manager here? Who's responsible for this number of staff? And quite often, this project manager, and I've been in this situation before, this is like a local authority I used to work for, is that you need your staff to work with you, but then your other guy won't release their time, and so you always try to negotiate division of time. So it has a bit of a problem there. It can be quite chaotic, and there can be power struggles between these people as they try to exert who's most important. However, having said that, it is a useful way to embed principles all the way through an organisation. So it's just worth being aware when you go to work in an organisation, where are you? How is your organisation run? What kind of structure does it have? Because you will need to make different decisions based on what kind of structure you're working with. This is one that comes from Epstein book, which is on your reading list. making sustainability work. He argues that in organising for sustainability, everything matters. Vertical structure matters, okay? Depending on how we run a project, whether you've got authority or not. A project's more likely to achieve sustainability goals if the function of that project is higher up with the organisation. So if you really, really want to drive sustainability in your project, you need to be aligned with the chief executives, okay? What we call the C-suite. So chief executive, chief financial officer, chief information officer sometimes. And now the CSO, chief sustainability officer. So big companies will have these people that sit at the very top. You need to be bought in with those people in order to make things happen, because they're the decision makers. So vertical structure matters. But also horizontal structure. A project's more likely to achieve sustainability goals if the function is within certain departments. So again, if you're not separating your project away and just hiding yourself away, doing your special thing, but you're embedded throughout the rest of the organisation, then it follows a lot of the resource efficiencies you're going to get are going to spread out. But there's no one-size-fits-all approach, it will be different. So the whole point of this is that structure of your organisation matters, and structure of your project team matters, okay? And you need to align yourself with your organisation's key goals. Okay, let's look at a few decision-making tools. So the creation of a project from an organisation plans through to proposals, through to decisions, to operations, is a difficult process in itself. So the client gives you a brief, or your organisation gives you a brief, and then you've got to come up with a way of delivering that, delivering the value, or delivering the process. Certain questions need to be asked. The decision maker in the diagram is the person or people responsible for authorising a proposal. So this is your chief executive. Okay, we want to achieve this. How are we going to do it? Would it be as nice as you... Well, starting here, sorry. Where are we now? So we're looking at our situational analysis. So do you remember when we did your SWOT on sustainability? Situational analysis. Where are we now? Where do we need to get to? How can we get there? So, okay, so this is where we are now. We want a new product. We're missing out in the market. Where would you like to get to? We'd like to get to making the best carpet tiles we can in the world, most sustainable. How can we get there? Okay, well, we can design this, we can do that. Will it be as good as we thought at the end of the day? Yeah, great, okay, go ahead. So basically, this decision-making process, the whole point of this is circular, cyclic, okay? Decision-making should always kind of improve every time. Triple loop learning, though, not single loop learning. So how do we come up with this decision analysis project? Well, these are typical steps in analysis process. This comes from the project management body of knowledge. So this is what the PMI, project management body of knowledge, tells us should be our decision making for a project. So framing the problem at the top. Okay, what is our situation? Where are we now? And at the same time thinking about risk management. So if we're talking about sustainable development, this is where you start thinking at the top, okay? What is it we need to achieve? What are the risks that we're facing in terms of resource use, climate change, transport, weather changes, location? So all the things we talked about for sustainable development, we should be thinking about that here. Creating models for alternative projects. How are we going to actually come up with this problem? Risk analysis again. Determining what's most important in our project, risk analysis, and then implementing the alternative. And the idea of this document is just to show you that risk management is something that should be incorporated from the very, very start of a project all the way through. Okay? And one of the arguments I've been trying to make is that sustainability in projects and project management is just about good risk management. Right up here, you should be thinking of what are the environmental constraints and opportunities that we face on this project. So a sustainable decision-making tool, they don't have to be complicated. You've probably come across SMART. Anybody come across SMART before? This is the way that you should be, everything that you plan should be SMART, okay? So if you're saying, okay, I'm going to write an essay, you start doing your plan, you look at your plan. Is it specific? Do we know exactly what we need to achieve? Is it measurable? How do we know we're going to actually achieve what we have? Is it achievable? Can we do this? Is it something that's completely mad, like flying to Mars? Is it realistic and is it time-bound? So SMART is quite a common tool in organisational decision making. Pop the E and the R in the end and we get environmentally responsible too. So decision-making tools can be simple. And this is one that's been proposed by Motzman and Shirley in their Green Project Management book. And actually, I do know a couple of local companies that use this now. So everything they plan, they go for the smart thing, which you would do anyway, and then say, okay, well, is it environmentally responsible? And they use that to make a decision. If it's not, they won't do it. Okay? So decision-making tools don't need to be complicated. Another decision-making tool, cost-benefit analysis, something that project managers should be very useful. So it's a technique for assessing the monetary and social costs and benefits of a capital investment over a given time period. So the principles of cost-benefit analysis are very simple. You appraise a project. It is an economic technique for project appraisal, widely used in business as well as government spending projects. For example, should we invest in a particular system or not? It incorporates externalities into the equation, which can include wider social impacts as well as private economic costs. So what you're looking at the benefits you're going to get out of delivering this project. Then you're going to have a look at the costs of delivering this project. Is it worth initiating? And again, in sustainability, the argument is you can add the social dimension in as well. There's a famous story, actually. I'm just going to digress. Just thinking of. There was a car made by Ford in the 1970s. I forget what the brand it was, and it had a problem. It had a big problem. The problem was that its fuel tanks were at the back, right at the back, very, very close to the bumper at the back. They had a number of failures where there'd been an accident. Someone got into the back of his car, the fuel cell had ruptured, and the car had gone into flames and killed everybody inside. Pretty big problem, you'd imagine. Pretty big design flaw for a car. And they had a couple of problems with this. It happened a few times. Famously, nothing happened. They didn't change the design. They didn't recall the car. It kept happening. People started to say, what's going on here? And it transpired a bit later through some studies that were done and some court cases that came out of people claiming damages for this car, which was obviously a death trap. But what Ford had done is a cost-benefit analysis. They said, okay, what are the costs of us recalling all of our cars, redesigning it and putting this problem right? It's going to be this many billion or whatever it was. Okay, how much is it going to cost us to pay the damages for the people who've died and the damages to what happens in the future? Okay, it's going to be a lot less actually. Okay, well in that case, we'll not invest in improving the car. What we'll do is we'll just pay the damages. We'll put a fund aside to pay the damages. And of course, when this came out in the court of law, it didn't go down very well. It's quite a famous, I can't remember the name of the car, it's quite a famous case. If you pop it in Ford and cost-benefit analysis, you'll find it. So cost-benefit analysis can be used for evil, but it can also be used for good. So if they incorporated some other aspects into that, some environmental costs for instance, their cost-benefit model would have been slightly different. So cost-benefit analysis, a useful tool. Decision trees, again, a very simple tool that you should use for decision making. Here's a possible project. We're going to introduce some hybrid maize. Is that land available to us to do that? Yes. Okay, brilliant. The land has a user to plant hybrid maize. Is there any extra land available? Yes, brilliant. So basically you're just coming up with a very quick decision tree which you can draw out on the back of a fag packet, as they say, back of an envelope, to see whether or not you're going to make this decision. So it's a way of representing graphically the decision-making process and the various possible outcomes. So you can decide which is your most important outcome at the end there and decide how you're going to go through it. They're particularly useful when you have to make a decision about a choice of route when there are uncertainties about the results. Okay, so it's a bit of planning. Start at the case, where do you want to be, trying to think about ways to actually achieve what it is you're trying to achieve. So decision tools, again, very simple planning tool. Backcasting. Probably one of my favourite ones. The concept of backcasting is central to strategic sustainable development. It's a way of kind of planning for a successful outcome. It's the opposite of what we used to do, which is forecasting. Okay? So with forecasting, we're saying, okay, so what happens if we do this? What will happen then? And where will we end up? You're trying to look into the future and decide what it is you're going to try to achieve. So forecasting is kind of a short to medium term planning tool. It's much more effective to do backcasting. So you ask the question, what do we need to today to reach that successful outcome? Forecasting tends to kind of have a more limited range of options and stifles creativity, because all you can think about is what's in front of you. Okay, so where do you want to get to? We want to be the most sustainable organisation we are. Okay, how do we get there? Well, this is what we're doing now, so we'll have some change here, and then we'll change this. So forecasting is very kind of limited. Backcasting is the opposite. We imagine a scenario, the kind of ideal scenario, and then we work backwards in steps of how to get to that. So ideal scenario, we want to live on Mars. Okay, how do we get there? Well, we need a space vehicle, we need this. You can work backwards until you get to the point where you very much know what you need to do next. So it's a bit more kind of, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. So you get a scenario, you bring it backwards, and then you decide what you need to do to put the pieces together to get where you need to go. Getting large groups of people to a degree on desired future scenario is very impossible though, and scenarios that are too specific may limit innovation. Strategic sustainable development relies on backcasting from sustainability principles. So we know what the principles are, we know what we need to do. We need to come up with a world where we harmonise our resources, we make sure our resource use is leaving the earth a better place, and then we start to backcast what we need to do in order to get there. Okay? So it's long-term thinking rather than short-term thinking. So when we did that project management thing, project management's all about short-term, temporary, sustainability is all about long-term. So another tool for you there, backcasting. We touched on this last week, sustainable decision making, double loop learning and single loop learning, and I told you I wanted you to do triple loop learning. So where we are at the moment, this is what we do every day, our techniques, our goals, our values, our strategies. This is what results we get, and just kind of incrementally improving. And like I said, this is where project management's been for the last 50 years, incrementally improving our processes. And then we get into this point now where we're saying, well, actually, what do we want to do? We're trying to bring sustainability in and trying to come up with new ways of actually achieving the same results. Triple loop learning is even further thinking outside the box. And sustainable decision-making tools, multi-criteria decision analysis. This is a tool that I developed actually on a project I was working on. So the idea of this is that we had 3 large consortiums of developers bidding for a £300 million construction project. And we wanted to make sure that the plans that the client, the developer that we went for had the most sustainable kind of set of plans in terms of outcome. There wasn't any way to do that was out there, so we came up with a system of indicators so we could look through the developer's strategic plans and we could get an indication of which of those would be most sustainable and in which part. So we had a client that was very interested in knowing how their energy performance would be, or their contribution to health and well-being of their construction projects, their contribution to social and economic impacts. And so we developed a range of outcomes, very, very clear metrics, very clear indicators, and then we could score these developers when they put their plans in front of us, and we could give them this indication. And so we could go back to them and sit opposite them and say, we like your plans, it's a fantastic set of buildings you're going to deliver. However, we think you need to work a little bit harder on kind of improving health and well-being in this area. Here are some ways you could do that. So a very good way, a very easy to use tool as a method of improving sustainability into projects using indicators and well-known kind of sustainability facts, if you like. So multiple criteria decision tools is a sub-discipline of operations research, and it considers multiple criteria in decision-making environments. So very complex decision-making tools. Okay, so touch on business planning. So there are decision tools out there. There are ways that we can use these tools, which are not specific to sustainable development, to try to lever in some sustainability principles. One of the things I'm going to keep trying to drill into you is that when you do sustainability in project management, the earlier stage that you get involved in this, the more likely your outcomes are going to be what you need them to be. So once we've gone through our decision making, we've looked at our organisation, we know where we want to get to, what we want to produce, we need to come up with the business case. Okay? What's the business case for running this project? So an effective business case is a multi-purpose document, generates support from the leadership and commitment to actually get your project to become reality. It's the first step in financial planning, and make sure that you have the financial justification for the allocation of the resources you need. So when we're talking about sustainability, we have to make sure that we're actually building it in from the ground up. right into the business case at the start. So the kind of things that you would have in your business case, the anticipated outcomes of the project, the relationship to the organisation's plan, so an overall strategy. How is your project going to talk to the outcomes of the organisation? How is it going to embed itself? Any opportunities and benefits, the timescales, stakeholder analysis, what are the running costs, what are the likely benefits, cost-benefit analysis. All of these things will go into your business case, these commercial, legal and social benefits. When we're thinking about sustainability, we have to make sure that we have these points in there too. And again, this isn't common. They won't explicitly be mentioned in your business case in most cases. So again, this is from Making Sustainability Work, Epstein book. He argues that the step one is to develop our goals and objectives and scale and approach. So this is where we're talking at organisational level. Creating information systems which justify the need for sustainability, and then coming up with your framework and your business case. So this is organisational level. What is it we need to achieve? Decision making. How do you think we're going to embed this? And then actually popping it into your business case. Why do we need to embark on this project from a sustainability point of view? Are we going to get cost savings, increase in sales, increased competitiveness, increased reputation? So you're making the case for sustainability in your specific project. So the issue regarding environmental dimensions of business planning is whether or not the project has a positive environmental impact and how these key aspects have been considered. So the kind of things we should think about. To what degree will the project reduce or prevent emissions of pollutants, for instance? That's one of your benefits you could write explicitly into your project plan. Will the project result in the recovery of natural resources? Is the use of fossil fuel reduced by the project? Have green procurement targets been thought of? Is this project beneficial to biodiversity? The idea is if you write these key things in at the very early stage of your business case, which is then signed off by your client, you will have to achieve these. They're set in stone, they're part of your KPIs. Okay? So the business case, it's very important to get environmental concerns in there. With regard to environmental economic dimensions, we have to identify sustainable economic drivers, because at the end of the day, most clients are going to be interested in your economic output rather than the amount of species you've protected, for instance. So how does this project strengthen the financial tools for ecosystem protection? Has the principle, polluter pays principle, been followed? The polluter pays principle basically says if you do harm, you pay for it. Okay? It came out in the 70s when we used to have chemicals companies just dumping toxic waste into rivers. It was quite common, and it was well, that's nothing to do with us. You know, that's for the environment agencies to sort out. Polluter pays principle was brought in, which means if you pollute, you pay for having it cleaned. Have the costs of all effects been taken into consideration? Are the financial drivers of the project sustainable? So you need to make this case in financial terms. And finally, the social considerations as well. How does the project increase the public's understanding of sustainability? Does the project influence citizens' positive behaviour? Can the project create positive effects for public health? So again, it's quite common now, and there are some examples out there of business cases for projects. The Olympics is a great one again, just because it's quite relevant, where they explicitly set targets in their business plan. This is what we're going to achieve socially, this is what we're going to achieve economically, and this is what we're going to achieve environmentally. So the business case is a very important place to lever in your sustainable development goals. Okay, and just finally, the project charter. So large and very complex projects need more scoping work at the very early stages. There'll be a formal statement, which is usually known as a scoping document, the quality plan, the project charter, or the project information document. So the charter is basically a statement of scope, objectives, and the principles. It's your reason for running the project in the first place. It gives you an idea of who the roles and responsibilities will be, outlines the project objectives, identifies the main stakeholders. So without the project charter, the project's a bit ambiguous. So imagine you're starting working on a project and you haven't got a plan of what you're actually going to achieve. So you need to make sure that you build that in at a very early stage. And again, with regard to sustainability, the project charter should always have at least a sustainability statement. So again, this is quite common now, which will say, this is what we're going to achieve financially, this is what the project is going to do, it's going to move it into a new market, and this is our sustainability statement. This is how it's going to contribute to our corporate social responsibility at a strategic organisation level. Similar, the project initiation document starts on the business case, And in Prince 2, one of the methodologies that people use for project management, you cannot start your project until your project initiation document's been signed off by your, what we call the project board or your client. So this includes all the details of the project goals and objectives and the critical success factors. So how will you know when you've achieved what your project needs to achieve? It will include things like risk management, it will include any assumptions that you've got, and it will include your outline plan. The last project I worked on, that project initiation document, was about 600 pages long, and had to get signed off by the Treasury in London, so it had to get signed off by the, the top government department at the time. So it's a very important kind of scoping stage of your project. And again, building sustainability into every part is important. Who's going to be responsible for sustainability in your project? How are you going to address it? What are the sustainability risks? What are the constraints? And what are your outline plans? Sustainable project charter, again, so once you've got your initiation document, your charter will be the first place that controls everything that's going on in the project. This is the terms of reference so that every single person working for you knows what they're trying to achieve, what their scope is, what their objectives are, what their key performance indicators, what your deliverables are. Okay? So this is what your staff will use to work out what's going on a day-to-day basis. There are two key benefits of sustainability in the project charters. So it gets the project thinking about sustainability from the initiation phase. So when you're just starting to run your project, you're getting your team together, they've got a very clear document that sets out exactly what you need to achieve from a sustainability point of view. So your staff can't argue with you. It's part of their job, it's actually in there. And it also authorises the project manager to formalise the processes in the sustainability project management plan. So I guess all of this I'm talking about now is arguing that you need to embed your sustainability principles in from the very start of the project, and you need to have that embedded in every document you produce. That gives you the mandate to then go forward. This is signed off by your client or by your boss, and then you have the mandate which you can take forward from that. Without that, you can't do such. Sometimes these sustainable project charters are used for budget authorization. So having sustainability in there, so reduction of paper use, is a great selling point to go to your boss with, your client with. In addition, the sustainable project charter can spell out the project acceptance criteria on how sustainable the project was. So how are you going to monitor this afterwards? So it's just another way. This is an example for the United States Department of Agriculture. How they were going to have business benefits, what their benefits were from a sustainability point of view, their problem statement, their goal statement. So trying to think from an early stage, everything that you do in there is built in sustainability-wise. Okay, so it's just to summarise, sustainable project tools. There are lots of them out there. This is a great website to go to. This is the World Business Council on Sustainable Development. And they have a range of tools on there. Environmental management systems, life cycle management systems, designing for the environment, life cycle costing, green building design, stakeholder engagement tools, eco-labelling. And we'll look at those in more detail in the next couple of weeks or so. But there are tools that you can use that are freely available in most cases in order to embed sustainability into your projects. So a good place to start, we're going to have a look at some of these in some of the seminars. Okay. And again, this is where the tools are used. So we have things like environmental impact assessment, responsibility, integrated product typology, product stewardship, reporting. So we've got industry on that side really, and we've got government on this side. So a lot of these tools are used to these are recognised environmental management tools that you use across industry and across sectors. And so this should give you an idea of where you can start looking and investigating some of these and writing them up for your essays. Okay, what we're going to turn to next week is looking at project planning. So this is all about kicking off the project. Where do we first build sustainability into our whole kind of reason for running the project in the first place? So our charters and our plans. Next we're going to look more formally at planning. So things like work breakdown structure, your Gantt charts, your actual physical allocation of funding and resources. Again, there are tools that we can use to try to embed sustainability into there. So hopefully this will give you a starting point to have a look at some of the tools that are available to meet the sustainability drivers that we've been talking about in the last few weeks. Okay, don't forget in the seminars we're going to do assessment masterclass, I'm calling it. So any questions you've got about the assessment, bring it in. Anything you want me to do with you, you want me to show you how to reference again, I can do that. You want to show me how to structure an essay, I can do that. Whatever it is you want. And it's going to be led by you, so think of some questions. If you turn up and there's no questions, everyone's cool, fine, we'll just go home. Okay, so, but use this time, and I'm also going to show you an example of an 80% essay and a 20% essay, okay? You can't take them away, but I'll let you see the differences between how you score well and how you score badly. Okay, thanks guys. Yeah, but
Yes, yesterday, yeah, me and him was in the library last night. I used to go to basically reading, but you can rent them. Basically because...
Can I pay by card there? I think you can pay £46, but I have more. No, I don't.
Of all the menus. First I went to them around. Yeah, it is too bad. It's kind of what we need to know.
Yeah,
He explains it, so you can write down what he says, and you read back over what he says. It's quite easy to understand. So, yeah, it is right. If you kind of get into that, is the book. Shit. I was reading it, I was just like, yeah, well, I have it from the library. I should have read it back 2 weeks ago, so I owe about £4. I don't care. I'd rather keep it for now and just, for the exam and then I would work for it just to kind of, to know at least I've got
I think it's still on.
It's still on.
When he doesn't talk specifically project management, he talks mostly around these organisations. However, I think you can use that as a starting point to think about project management. The trouble is, all this I'm trying to teach you realistically 3 to 5 years old. And so, I don't get the end to build any good system. So that's why this is quite exciting. So if you take that's quite a good look there. The lecture is recorded anyway. Oh, thank you. Cheers. Probably.